The Reinvention of Edison Thomas, Chapter 10, Part 2. He dried his hands and threw the paper towel away. For a second, he hoped he could end it here, but the bathroom garbage can was nearly empty. Apparently, Eddie was the only person in school who washed his hands after using the bathroom. It had to be the lunchroom, where the half-empty milk cartons, wrappers, and uneaten fruits and vegetables would swallow up the evidence. It would look very strange if he just walked in and threw the bag away. So he worked his way against the stream of students leaving the lunchroom and easily found a seat at an empty table. He took his quickie meal bar, Rocky Road flavor, out of his backpack, unwrapped it, and took a bite, staring at the wrapper while he chewed. And chewed, and chewed. Swallowing was problematic. His esophagus seemed unwilling to accept any food right now. After one bite of his meal bar, he got up and threw his trash away. The remains of the meal bar and its wrapper into the garbage can that was nearly full, and the bag of contraband explosives and tuna scraps into the half-full can next to it. As more garbage was placed in the can, the Roman candle would be buried in half-eaten fish sticks, tartar sauce, overcooked green beans, and sour milk-soaked napkins. Eddie hoped a large quantity of discarded milk in the can would keep the Roman candle from igniting. Eddie squeezed through a bunch of giggling girls to get back into the hall. He exhaled. He looked around to make sure nobody was watching him, then headed straight for Coach Vang's office. "May I please use the trampoline?" "Sure," said Coach Vang, getting his keys out of his pocket. "What's up?" Eddie looked at the ceiling. "Nothing." "Are you okay?" Coach Vang unlocked the storage room door. "Fine." Eddie dropped his backpack next to a pile of tennis rackets and passed Coach Vang without another word. He walked directly to the trampoline and started jumping. It took longer than usual for the rhythm to settle in. Jump, jump, jump. What if someone saw him get rid of the Roman candle? How could he explain that he had no idea how it got there? Who would believe him? Jump, jump, jump. Coach Vang peeked into the storage room, but Eddie looked away. Jump. Nobody would know about the firework. He had disposed of the evidence before anyone could have known about it. Jump. Jump. He had to focus his mind on something else. Jump. His traffic device. The bell rang. Eddie kept jumping. The control unit was all set. He just needed to run home after school to get the hoses and lay them across the road. Jump. Once he hooked them up to the control unit, it would be ready to go. Jump. Eddie. Maybe it would need a little more calibration. Eddie, you need to get to class. Coach Vang stood at the storage room door. I know, replied Eddie, and he headed off to English class, trying with every neuron in his brain to replace thoughts of the Roman candle with more productive and less stressful plans for his traffic device. Fact number 568 from the Random Access Memory of Edison Thomas. Gunpowder, or black powder, is composed of carbon, originally obtained from charcoal, sulfur, and potassium nitrate. In its simplest form, the combustion of gunpowder is expressed in the following reaction. Conflict. Miss Terwilliger underlined the word on the blackboard, causing a painful squeak with the chalk. She set the chalk down and wiped the dust off her hands. We know that conflict is an essential part of the plot in fiction. But conflict is just as important to compelling nonfiction. Let's look at the different kinds of conflict we might use in our biographies. Eddie opened his Thomas Edison book to the appendix, where a series of schematic diagrams showed how the original phonograph Edison invented in 1877 had evolved. The first model used a cylinder covered with foil to record and play back the sounds. Later models used wax cylinders. Edison even invented a talking doll that used a very tiny wax cylinder. Maybe Miss Terwilliger could let him construct a working model of the Edison phonograph instead of writing something. He knew it was possible to make a working model of the Edison phonograph, since They Might Be Giants had recorded 4 songs that way at the Edison Museum. Miss Terwilliger's hand tapped the schematic drawing of the original phonograph. It's time to work on the lesson, she whispered. I want you to list the different conflicts in your subject's life. Who is the subject of your biography? Thomas Edison. Fine, you can use the list on the board to help you. Eddie looked at the board. Character versus self, nature, society, another character. That was no help. Eddie flipped through the book. He checked the index under conflict and found nothing. He tried the table of contents. Chapter 8, The Current War. War sounded like a conflict. Eddie turned to Chapter 8 and read about the disagreement between Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla over the use of alternating current or direct current for the distribution of electrical power. Edison favored DC. Tesla favored AC. Edison and Tesla repeatedly attempted to discredit each other. Both Edison and Tesla were rumored to have been nominated for the 1915 Nobel Prize in Physics, but neither was willing to accept the prize if he had to share it with the other. In the end, the 1915 prize was awarded to William H. Bragg and his son, William L. Bragg, for their work using X-rays to reveal the structure of crystals. Neither Edison nor Tesla was ever awarded the Nobel Prize, even though both contributed immensely to our scientific knowledge. Edison's contributions were practical, and he became a wealthy man. Tesla's contributions were more theoretical, and Tesla died penniless. Eddie wondered what would have happened if Edison and Tesla had gotten along, or even gotten together. With Tesla's theoretical abilities and Edison's flair for popular inventions, they would have been a great team. Eddie knew a lot about Nikola Tesla, since so much had been named after him. The Tesla is a unit of measurement of magnetic fields. Then there is the Tesla coil, which made most modern electronic devices possible. Even though an eddy coil wasn't anything like a Tesla coil, and even though the eddy coil wasn't actually named after him, Eddie pictured his project that had failed to win the science fair. Eddie had used it to make a copper ring fly through the air. Impressive, but not practical. More like a Tesla invention than an Edison invention. Tesla's ideas were brilliant, but Edison's more useful inventions had earned him all that recognition and money. Next year, Eddie's very useful traffic device would win first place for sure. Fact number 1,500,000 from the random access memory of Edison Thomas. The world's largest conical Tesla coil is in the Mid-America Science Museum in Hot Springs, Arkansas. When Eddie got to his locker at the end of the day, Mr. Benton stood there waiting for him. "I have reason to believe that you may be in possession of some illegal materials," said Mr. Benton stiffly. "What sort of materials?" asked Eddie. He gripped the shoulder straps of his backpack, picturing his adrenal glands pumping out adrenaline and trying to stop them. "May I have a look in your locker, please?" Eddie looked at his locker. He had never cleaned up the ketchup drip on the floor. Maybe that was why Mr. Benton knew about the condiment packages. Eddie had removed most of them from his locker. There might be a few. Justin was probably right. Mitch had put them there. Eddie dialed the combination and opened the door. Eddie pushed at the panic in his head as Mr. Benton pulled the books off the shelf at the top of his locker and peeked behind them. Mr. Benton rifled through the papers at the bottom of the locker. "Ah!" exclaimed Mr. Benton. He had found something. Panic. Push it back. It was just condiments, not a serious offense. Mr. Benton pulled back his hand, which was covered with mustard. He pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket and wiped his hand. "Nothing illegal here," he said. "You really should clean out this locker, young man." Eddie exhaled. "Yes, sir. Now the backpack." "What?" "I need to look in your backpack." It wasn't the condiments Mr. Benton was looking for. It was the Roman candle. How did he know about it? Eddie's heart rate spiked, but then he reminded himself that he had already disposed of the evidence. Panic subsided. There was nothing for Mr. Benton to find and nothing for Eddie to fear. He took a cleansing breath, slipped his backpack off his back onto the floor, unzipped every zipper, and stepped back confidently. Mr. Benton stared at Eddie's face for a moment, glanced into each compartment of the backpack, then studied Eddie's face again. "False alarm, I suppose. I may have been given some false information. I apologize." Once Mr. Benton was gone, Eddie re-zipped all the zippers on his backpack. Could this day get any stranger? Who ever heard of a principal apologizing to a student? Fact number 5 billion from the random access memory of Edison Thomas. The term stool pigeon is derived from the practice of hunting passenger pigeons. A stuffed pigeon was placed on a stool as a decoy to attract other pigeons. By the time Eddie ran home, then carried the detectors for his device back to the intersection, most of the kids had left school. He set to work carefully measuring the distance from the stop sign to each of the sites for the detectors. He was glad to have a project that was interesting and complex enough to drive out the Roman candle thoughts. As he was placing the second detector across the road, Coach Vang came by. "Hey, Eddie," said Coach Vang. "How's it hanging?" Fine," replied Eddie, looking at the hose that was hanging from his hands. "What are you working on?" "It is a device to measure the velocity of vehicles as they approach the stop sign. A lot of drivers have been ignoring the sign, you know." "That's a real problem, I guess." "Yes, it is. I am thinking I might enter this device in next year's science fair. If I start now, I can collect a large amount of data. That will make the statistics more convincing." "Great. So how does it work? What are the hoses for?" "The cars go over them and trip pressure sensors." "Oh, like gas stations used to have," interrupted Coach Vang. "When a car rolled over the hose, it rang a bell inside the building so the attendant knew a customer was waiting." Exactly like that. Eddie knew he liked Coach Vang for a reason. "Are you feeling better after your tramp time?" asked Coach Vang. "Yes, I am fine. Is there anything you want to talk about?" "No." Why would Eddie want to talk about something he was trying to forget? "Well, then good luck with your project. I need to go now, but if you decide you want to talk, my door is always open." "Thank you." Actually, Coach Vang's office door was frequently closed or even locked. Eddie let his traffic device absorb his attention again. He finished with the detectors and began installing the control unit next to the pole that held the stop sign, taping out the elements in Morse code while he worked. The metal pole made a nice ring sound when he tapped it with his quarter-inch nut driver. "That's a good beat. Very complex." Kip had a guitar case in his left hand. "Did you ever think of taking up the drums?" "No," stated Eddie flatly. "I was doing Morse code." "Well, maybe you should think about learning drums. You've got a great sense of rhythm." "I am not very musical." "Music is just math," said Kip, putting his guitar down. "As a matter of fact, that is true. Sound waves are vibrations. A musical tone is a collection of related vibration frequencies, and the numerical relationship between the frequencies determines the quality of the tone. Without a whole number mathematical relationship between the frequencies, it is just noise, not music." "My mom calls our music noise," said Kip. Eddie laughed. "Anyway," continued Kip, "you should come to one of our jam sessions." Eddie thought of orange, marmalade, and strawberry preserves. He was getting hungry. "Eddie?" "Yes?" "Would you like to try some jamming with us sometime?" Now Eddie thought of jamming radio signals. "You know, Eddie, maybe you'd have more friends if you didn't ignore people all the time." "I do not ignore people." Um, yeah, you do. You didn't even say goodbye to me the other day. Were you mad at me for criticizing your invention?" "No," said Eddie. Why would he be mad at Kip? Kip looked at his watch. "Yikes! I'm late for practice. It was supposed to start at 7. Eddie looked at his own watch. 7:16:36. He was late for dinner. No wonder he was so hungry. In the light of the street lamp, he hadn't really noticed how dark it had gotten. He made sure all the components were secure, then packed up and ran home for dinner. Fact number 220 from the random access memory of Edison Thomas. The white layer of citrus peels is called the albedo. It is high in pectin, which is used to thicken jams, jellies, and preserves.